Have you ever felt tired, unproductive, lethargic, stuck in your head, overwhelmed? Here's a quick little hack to get your mind out of that pattern. Driven mofos, welcome back to another episode of The Underestimated Entrepreneur. Let's talk today about a quick little mindset hack that I teach everybody at our Thrive Time event to break out of those crazy mindset patterns that most people get stuck in, which might make them tired, lethargic, burnt out, overwhelmed, where you self-doubt yourself, where you're criticizing yourself. This is just a little pattern interrupter, a little break to stop your brain staying on that roller coaster. So let's talk about it. Now, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Michael Mojo. I'm the founder of Mojo Human Performance Institute, where we focus on business, mindset, and lifestyle hacking for driven mofos. And the reason why I do these episodes is that most people waste their life, and I just don't want you to be one of them. All right, so this is a little pattern that I talk about at our Thrive Time event. And what it is I was looking at different patterns that normally get people stuck and cause sabotage patterns or stop people from taking action and, doing the shit that they need to do every day, which I think is most people. Or it stops them getting caught in those self-defeating mindset patterns that most people get stuck in. So what I started doing was when I was looking around and doing different research and going to different events and seminars, I was looking at what are the common patterns that get people stuck, but also how do we get out of those patterns? So something that is spoken about quite a lot in personal development and also in the psychology field or the mental health space is our language and the way that we talk it to ourselves. So most people, when they're in that pattern where they're self-defeating, beating themselves up, or they're overwhelmed and they're saying things like, I'm stuck, I can't do this, what if it doesn't work, what if I fail? And they're caught in those loops or the loops in their stories that keep them stuck. So what I realized was that we had to change our language or the verbalizations that we're consistently using. So that's number one. The second thing is that there are studies and different research out there that shows that when we look up and pull our shoulders back, what it can do is it can increase serotonin levels. So this is, I don't like calling it a feel-good hormone because it's not really that, but I guess you could say that it makes us feel a little bit better or it motivates us a little bit. I hate using those terminologies. If there's any endocrinologists or medical doctors listening to this stuff, they're probably going to have a heart attack. But that's essentially part of what serotonin does. It just makes us feel a little bit better. I don't want to say it's a stimulating hormone because it's not that either. That's like adrenaline and norepinephrine, but it just makes us feel better. What we want to do is look up and pull our shoulders back and lengthen the spine because that then helps us to feel better. So part of this pattern that I'm going to teach you, that I teach at Thrive Time, is that pattern where we look up and pull our shoulders back. So that's number two. Number three is our breathing. So there is so much scientific evidence and data now to show that our breathing affects the way that we feel, and it also affects the way that we think. But when you look at physiology, it affects every part of our body. So if someone has a poor breathing pattern or their diaphragm's locked up or their intercostal muscles in between their rib cage are all jammed, they might have neck injuries, they can have jaw problems, they can have a blockage with their thinking because you've got a decrease in blood flow. It can cause gastrointestinal problems or issues, just with your viscera or all your internal organs because that blocks up that area there. I mean, we can't go more than a couple of minutes without breathing. So it's probably one of the most fundamental things that humans do is breathe. Now, most people have never been taught how to breathe properly, and most people don't even know if they are breathing properly. So at some of my more advanced events, I go into breathing patterns because it is so important. And unfortunately, it's something that most people never look into. So if you have someone with neck injuries or shoulder injuries or lower back problems or hip problems, even ankle and foot mobilization problems, it may be a breathing problem or it might be a problem with their diaphragm. There's just so many things that can go wrong if someone doesn't breathe properly. And it's crazy. It's so obvious. You get someone who works at a desk quite a lot. And I saw this when I used to work a lot in physical rehab, where that certain people would come in and they kept having shoulder injuries or lower back problems or hip problems or neck problems. And when you assess their breathing, they would have shitty breathing. And then you might look into their breathing pattern and go, well, why aren't they breathing properly? And let's say they're overeating food. If they're overeating food, it pushes the stomach up into the diaphragm, and that can block that diaphragm from being able to breathe properly. Now, everyone knows that if you push your stomach out and try to reach your arms up over your head, it's really hard to do that. In fact, I was working with an AFL footballer who was quite a good footballer as well, and he'd had 3 shoulder reconstructions, and he came to see me. I was doing work as his, I guess you could say, mental performance coach or working as his mindset coach. And he was telling me about these injuries. And I said, well, let's have a look. And we did a bit of an assessment. And I noticed that he was really jammed up in his shoulders. When I tested out his breathing pattern, he couldn't breathe properly. And then when we had a look at why that was, and I got him to use a food journal, every time he was eating certain foods, he was bloating quite heavily. And that bloating, I believe, now this was my opinion, and I can't diagnose it, it looked like he was eating foods that were causing him to bloat. That bloating then jammed up his ability to breathe and also move his thoracic spine, which is sort of your mid-spine in between your ribcage. And he couldn't get his arms up over his head effectively. And so therefore, when he was marking overhead or taking a grab above his head, he would overstretch the capsule in his shoulders and dislocate them. Now, ever since we did that, he'd never had a shoulder problem since then, but I can't say that could have been, many other reasons as well why that could have happened. They have professional physiotherapists and all that sort of stuff and nutritionists at the club. He came to see me though outside of the club, even against the club's advice, because he wanted someone outside of the club to give him advice for his mindset and his mental performance, which, was great for him. But yeah, a lot of clubs don't like people going outside of their own, I guess you could say, specialists, but sometimes that's what's needed as well. So anyway, breathing is very, very important. So that's number 3. So first of all, we have our language and the way we communicate with ourselves and others. Number 2 is physiology and the way we use our body and lengthen our spine. Number 3 is our breathing. And then number 4, what we keep communicating to ourselves. So if you imagine that your brain is like a Google search engine, if you keep saying to yourself, why am I so fat? Why am I so fat? Why am I so stupid? I'm always fucking stupid. I always get things wrong. I can't remember anything. I always forget people's names. I'm just not good with money. If you keep saying those affirmations, because that's what you're doing, you're essentially affirming those things to yourself. That's like a Google search engine and typing into Google, why am I so fat? And then there's just going to be pictures of fat people come up. If you say, why am I so dumb? There's probably a whole bunch of different things that people have done that are stupid because you're reinforcing these thought processes that don't work for you. And most people do it. Most people keep reinforcing the things that they don't want, not the things that they do want. I see this every week where someone comes to me and they say, Michael, I can't understand why I can't remember people's names or why I can't remember things or why I always forget things. But if you listen to their self-talk, they're consistently saying things and putting stuff into their mind like, I always forget everything, or I'm not good with money, or I'm not good with people's names, or I'm not good with reading, or, I'm just stupid. Things like that do not work for you. They work against you, but most people do it. And it's a way of them self-criticizing themselves because they have a habit of doing that so that other people lift them up and say, it's not that bad. So they get a reinforcement of connection and sympathy and people trying to support them. And that's why most people do it. They don't even realize that it's destroying their fucking results in life and it's destroying their mindset. They don't realize how self-destructive it is, yet most people do it because it makes them feel better. I was with a friend a couple of weeks ago and he's like, I said to him, you should come and train with me. And he's like, oh, nah, you don't want a fat bastard like me training with you. Now, if he's saying that consistently, that he's a fat bastard, then he's always going to be a fat bastard because he's going to keep reinforcing that. And I pulled him up on it. I said, dude, what the fuck are you saying to yourself? Like, don't reinforce that shit. And he's like, oh, nah, it's just a joke. And I'm like, yeah, but how often have you said that over the last 20, 30 years? Like, no wonder why you've always struggled with your weight. You can't be saying that stuff to yourself. If someone else walked up to you and called you a fat bastard, you'd freak out, but you're saying it to yourself consistently. You cannot do that. So anyway, it's self-depreciating. And the only reason why people naturally self-depreciate is because it's a habit that they've created. So then other people around them support them, lift them up and or they get connection with it. Or people around them say, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, you look fine. And people use it as a way of other people trying to lift them up. You don't want other people to lift you up and pick you up. You want to be able to do that to yourself. And so I highly recommend that you stop doing that. Okay. That self-doubt does not work for you. Okay. So anyway, they're the 4 patterns. So the first one is language. Okay, you got to be careful of your self-talk. Number 2 is lengthening your spine, looking up, pulling your shoulders back. You'll notice that people who are depressed tend to look down, shoulders forward, they hunch over more. That puts them in a more depressive state. When you pull your shoulders back, lift your head up, it's now scientifically shown in different bits of research as well, different research shows that it increases things like serotonin. So if we're doing that, we're feeling better about ourselves. Then you have your internal search engine, which is what you say to yourself, and also your breathing patterns as well. If you take fast, rapid, deep breaths in, like, it changes your nervous system from doing long breaths in and short breaths out, like, so one puts you into more of a sleepy parasympathetic state and the other one energizes you. So long deep breaths in, short breaths out will put you into a parasympathetic state. The opposite way around, which is long breaths out, fast, rapid breaths in, will energize you. So those 2 states there change your nervous system from a flight, fight, or freeze response, which is known as the sympathetic response or the sympathetic nervous system response, to the parasympathetic, which is the rest, repair, and digest response. So one of them is more aligned with nighttime and resting, and the other one is more aligned with daytime and being active. We want to make sure that we're breathing effectively. So this is how we do it, and this is what I teach at Thrive Time. So I'll say this over and over and over again because it teaches people how to win in life. So this is what you want to do. I say eyes up, chest out, breathe deep, I've got this. Eyes up, chest out, breathe deep, I've got this. So if you're doing, you can do it right now. Even if you're driving, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're doing anything right now, all you need to do is lift your eyes up a little bit, lift your head up, pull your shoulders back, lift your chest up. So eyes up, chest out, breathe deep, and then say, I've got this. Eyes up, chest out, breathe deep, I've got this. And what it does is it's just a reinforcer to make sure that you can crush it every day. It stops you having that negative self-talk. It will change the things that you consistently search for. You know, the majority of people that I know are self-defeating. Shit, I actually hang out with some of the most successful people on the planet, and even they self-defeat themselves. Like, you've got 7 billion people on the planet. If you're in business, there's huge amounts of competition. There's huge amounts of competition for sexual partners. You know, if you want a relationship, there's, you know, a financial game that you've got to play. You've got to look after your kids and all that sort of stuff. Like, there's a whole world trying to take away the things that you work hard for. And yet most people give up on the starting line by self-depreciating and beating the shit out of themselves and thinking negatively and just reinforcing these shitty patterns that then burn them out, make them feel tired, you know, make them give up. Like, most people won't back themselves. It's just, I would say that it's probably 99% of people just don't back themselves. If you said to them, here's what you need to do, but you've got to commit to something, or you can just go back to doing what you currently do and getting the results that you currently get. Most people would say, I don't like the results that I'm getting. I know that I can be achieving more. That's most people. And then when you say, right, but here's what you've got to do, most people self-doubt, self-depreciate, get a brain full of clutter, self-depreciate, you know, just worry about things, stress about things, let fear take over, and then they don't do anything. And then they paralyze themselves and wonder why next year they're going to have the same results as this year, because they got the same results this year as what they did last year. And most people are really predictable. And I mean, most people who are listening to this are going to hate me saying that, but it's true. Most people just, they'll be in exactly the same position next year, even though they'll convince themselves that everything's going to change. It won't, because of those patterns that they consistently reinforce with themselves. Instead of stepping forward and stepping up and taking on challenge, they will just go back to what's most comfortable. They will delay things. They will put things off. They won't make decisions. When they do make decisions, they'll be fear-driven or looking for immediate gratification, and then they'll beat themselves up because they were probably not the best decisions. So the way around that is eyes up, chest out, breathe deep, I've got this. Eyes up, chest out, breathe deep, I've got this. Keep reinforcing it, driven mofos. Get out there, keep pushing it. Eyes up, chest out, breathe deep, I've got this. If you do that 3 times a day, even set your alarm. Set it for first thing in the morning when you wake up. Eyes up, chest out, breathe deep, I've got this. Do that, then reset an alarm for lunchtime. Reset one for before you go to bed. Eyes up, chest out, breathe deep, I've got this. And then keep reinforcing it until that becomes your strategy for life. And driven mofos, you've got this. Get out and crush it. Start making big decisions. Start pushing yourself forward. Start doing the things that you're scared of, because you realize that most of the shit that you're scared of, you're not really scared of anyway. It's just these are patterns that you keep reinforcing with yourself, and you're afraid of things because you don't understand them and you're not pushing the limits. It's like jumping out of a plane. Once you do it 20 times, you're not afraid of it anymore. I mean, there's still things that you think through, because if not, you'll kill yourself, really. And that's normal. But most people, the first time they jump out of a plane, it's the most scariest because they've never done it before. And so most people in life are the most scared when they haven't done things, using that pattern. Eyes up, chest out, breathe deep, I've got this. Keeps reinforcing that pattern that you've got it, you work through it, you'll figure it out. And every day you make a decision that is different from yesterday, you'll start figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and slowly you'll start to move forward because you'll be getting better results. Anyway, driven mofos, I hope this helps. Remember, eyes up, chest out, breathe deep. I've got this. Go and make a decision that you've been putting off today. Go get out there, go do it. You know what you need to do. Stop putting it off. Eyes up, chest out, breathe deep, and you have this. You've got it. Anyway, driven mofos, keep cranking, keep pushing hard. And I really do appreciate everyone who's been rating the podcast as well. If you haven't already done so, all I ask is that you just go to your podcast app. You should be able to give this a star rating. Just hit that star rating. The more people who rate the podcast, the more it gets out to more and more people. And thank you to all those who have been sharing this podcast with their friends and family. In fact, we've had a whole bunch of people join our Business Hacks or No BS Business Hacks group on Facebook. So it's called No BS Business Hacks for Driven Mofos. And I normally send out a bunch of messages when people join as well and give them a whole bunch of free resources. And I've actually had a bunch of people say to me who've just joined the group, say, I've already been listening to the podcast. So I really do appreciate that people have been sharing this with their friends, sharing it around. the more and more I can get people to share this, the more we get it out to more people, and the more people that I can help, get out there and crush it. I want to make sure that we have the most driven bunch of mofos on the planet, both mentally and also in business and career as well. I want to make sure that our community is just a bunch of people who are getting out there and crushing it. So anyway, thanks, driven mofos. Make sure you rate the podcast and please share it with your friends and family. Have a great day. Keep crushing it. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.